In this video, we're going to talk about the 3 big mistakes that nonprofits make. We're going to jump into that right now. We are Ted and Lisa Snyder, and we are nonprofit consultants because we believe that a better world needs healthier nonprofits. Now, we're talking today about the 3 biggest mistakes that nonprofits make. This is important because every day as you're going out in your nonprofit, you're trying to achieve things, you might be making these mistakes and you're not even realizing it. And so we put these together. We're excited to share them with you, and hopefully you can maybe pinpoint 1 or 2. Make sure you watch the video all the way to the end, because if you're doing one of these, you don't know you're doing it. You might want to have your eyes opened a little bit to it.
I think that's one of the big issues with nonprofit mistakes, is that a lot of times you don't even realize that you're making them. And so the effects of them are happening and you have no idea. You're just like, things are going along. We don't realize that we're missing a couple of things. So super important.
So the first one fits right with that, is that nonprofits aren't doing exit interviews.
Ooh.
Now, an exit interview is basically when somebody leaves your organization, whether they're a volunteer or a staff member, and they decide, you know what, I gotta be done here for whatever reason. Maybe they're moving away, or maybe they're not happy and they're actually like leaving the organization. You take the time to say, hey, that is totally okay. Let's have a conversation about maybe what your experience was here. We want to be able to improve the experience for the next people who are part of the organization. And during that interview, really, you're trying to unpack what it is that their experience was.
Yeah, now let's make it really clear. We recognize that not everyone is going to be with your organization forever. Maybe you have people who have a job change, they move out of state, they're just not in the area, or their schedule changes. There are a lot of different reasons. But the biggest mistake here is that nonprofit leaders assume that they already know the reason why. They think, oh, I know why you're leaving, so therefore I don't need to ask. And this can be the big things. They're leaving your organization, or it can be in the small things. They are switching teams. So whether you're a leader at the top of an organization or you have a volunteer that has a leader in the middle of your organization, these conversations are important, because the way that you ask, why are you switching out? What has changed? Can you tell me more about what your experience? Even if they say, you know, we're just moving. Okay, great. That's good to know. What would you change about our organization? Is there anything I'm not seeing? What could I be missing? Those conversations, super important. You will learn way more about your organization from the people who are leaving than you often will from the people who are staying.
Yeah,
because
especially
they will let you know everything.
Especially in a nonprofit organization, there's like this sort of like feeling that people generally want to be kind of like kind to each other and nice to each other. And so this is true in the for-profit businesses as well, but I think it's especially true in nonprofits, that when they have made the decision to leave the organization, all of a sudden they feel free to be a little more honest. And as the leader of the organization or the leader of the team in the organization, that honesty is extremely, extremely valuable. And it points out the things that you have no idea of. Like, we started this video talking about the fact that you might have mistakes that you're doing. You don't even realize. This is one of the ways to find out what you're doing wrong.
Now, a couple things. An exit interview is not a time to argue. It doesn't mean that they're 100% right, but it's also not a time to try and get them on board and convince them.
You're just trying to gain data.
Yep. That's really what it is. So.
And what else is it? You said there were 2 things. Another thing not an exit interview is it is not a time to try to get to keep them. They've already made the decision.
That's what I said. You interrupted me and didn't hear it.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's also not time to interrupt people.
But yeah, you don't want to try to like force them or try to incentivize them to stick around. They've already made the decision to be done. And it's not a time to try to like, well, what can we offer you to maybe get you to stick around?
Sorry, that conversation should have happened probably 2 to 3 months before this conversation is happening today.
Yeah, and honestly,
still valuable though.
Even if you were able to find something that could keep them around, it's not a recipe for a good exit later on. Like, you might have a good relationship now. They're thinking about, maybe I just need to get a different job somewhere else, and it's not necessarily like a bad reason they're leaving, but if you keep them around a lot longer than they were like feeling passionate about it, and they'd kind of sort of made up their mind, like you're going to allow those desires to be done with the organization to fester, and it's going to probably turn into something ugly, and that's not good.
Right. As one of my mentors told me, the minute someone makes the decision to leave, the rose-colored glasses come off. And if you're in the exit interview process, those glasses are off. They are seeing everything about the organization. They've made up their mind. Just because you offer them a promotion or a change in their role or whatever it might be, doesn't mean that they are capable of putting those glasses back on. So now you have someone who's mentally and emotionally exited, trying to get them to stay within your organization. It's not a recipe for a healthy culture.
Right. So do the exit interview, collect the data, and move on and celebrate them as they move on to the next thing, and use that data to improve your organization. All right. The next one that the next tip that we're going to cover, we actually pulled directly from our nonprofit masterclass on Teachable. We know that it's such a great tip. We're just like, let's just share this on YouTube. But our nonprofit masterclass is like a big deep dive into this kind of topic. But specifically, the tip for you, tip number 2, is setting up systems. Actually, sorry, not tips. The big mistake number 2 that you make is that you're setting up systems that don't allow the right people to the table.
Oh,
what does that mean?
This one hurts my heart. This is those systems that you have set up that say, in order for someone to make decisions, they have to have this organizational position within the organization, or they have to have this education, they have to have this experience, they have to have this title, they have to have been around the organization for a certain amount of time. And it's not that there aren't good guidelines for who you're allowing into your inner circle to help make decisions. But if the guidelines that you have in place do not allow the right person into the room, that can cause an issue, and you'll actually be missing out on potentially some awesome wisdom, experience, outside counsel, great ideas. There was one organization that we know of, and they just have a hard and fast rule. No parents can be on the board. Now, I understand that. If I have a kid who's in an organization, I'm probably going to be a little biased toward my kid, right? But with their hard and fast rule, the thing that was tricky about this is if they had someone in that organization who was maybe super passionate about fundraising or overseeing some of the outreach or different things like that with ideas, there actually wasn't a way for that parent to then get in front of the board to have those conversations. And so things like that, you want to make sure that the right people can get to the table and that you're not just making arbitrary lines in the sand just because you feel like it sounds good.
Yeah, you're creating red tape that doesn't allow quality to actually move forward. A good example of this is Elon Musk was doing a kind of an overview of his company, and he realized if Nikola Tesla was alive today, because of the strictures that we have in place for who we allow to work at our company, Nikola Tesla would not be able to get a job at Tesla.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, we got to change something because this company is named after the guy and he wouldn't be able to get a job here because of whatever requirements that we have in place.
Yep. And, you know, you might not even realize that this is the case. Maybe once a month you hold a meeting and you're like, this meeting is only for executive staff. Well, that could be the right choice. But what is the meeting about? And is the purpose of the meeting something that only executive staff can really speak into? Is it your annual planning and you're trying to figure out the best fundraising events? Maybe the right person to have in that meeting is someone who's super passionate about events. Like, there are lots of different things where you need to make sure that the purpose of the decisions being made at the table and the people who are best able to help bring ideas and help make those decisions, that they are working together, that they make sense together, and that you're not cutting the right people out and allowing the wrong people to guide your organization.
Yeah, and this is especially true and tricky with nonprofits because you have bylaws.
Yep.
So whether you're writing up the bylaws for the first time or you have some that you might need to work on getting adjusted a little bit.
Yep.
Sometimes those bylaws are written in a way that wasn't thinking about like how do we get quality people to the table, but more how do we keep bad people out, right?
Yeah.
Which unfortunately sometimes you throw the baby out with the bathwater when you do that. So you got to just figure out ways to make it so you're allowing the right people to the table.
Yeah, rather than having the bylaws that exclude the wrong people and having that be the focus, we'd say have a good vetting process before you allow someone to come to the table, but make sure that there's a way for the right person to get a seat.
Now, the third biggest mistake that we see nonprofits making is that there is no or low follow-up when they do events.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many nonprofits that we have talked to that do these phenomenal events. They spend 6 weeks, 3 months, half a year looking forward to this event. And they're like, we are planning, we are in preparation mode. We are going to do this. We are getting all the people in place. We're doing all the right buildup. We're going to host this really awesome event. And then the day after the event, we're like, so what did you do after the event? We're like, well, the event was done, so we were done.
We were exhausted, so we took
were exhausted.
A couple weeks off.
And guys, if you're going to put all the work into the event, do the proper follow-up. Those 6 weeks after the event are crucial. That is the time where you can lock in volunteers, connect with potential donors, really grow your sphere of people. That time is like the golden time. That is the purpose of the event. The purpose of the event is not the event. The purpose of the event is what comes out of the event so that you can build into the future for your organization. Don't waste the event. If you're not going to follow up with people, it may or may not even be worth doing, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You might get some good flash in the pan. We hit a thing, great. But if you want to build momentum to have a healthier organization and a healthier life for you as a leader, you need to figure out how to do proper follow-up so that your organization can grow over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is really, really important, especially with fundraising events, because it can be really exciting. We hit the fundraising goal that we wanted to. This was awesome. We ran a fantastic event. And then we forget to, maybe we even collected people's email addresses and stuff to be able to follow up with them. And then we just didn't do it. So that's why it's so incredibly important, because those gifts that came in from your awesome fundraising event could turn into so much more.
Yeah.
The networks that you're able to get into after that by doing follow-up and sending proper thank yous, the future donations that you can be getting from people who maybe showed up to one event, maybe from like out of state or something, and they're not gonna be able to show up to another event again.
Those few people who showed up to the event, like there are probably a few of them in there who are your future board members, who are your future largest donors, who are your future key fundraising advocates, who are your future volunteers. You don't know who's in the room who might have the capacity to lead 10, 50, or 100 volunteers. And if you just have them show up for the one-time event and then never follow up with them to see if they're interested in actually partnering with your organization long-term, you are missing out on a huge resource. Simply because you ran the event in a way where you didn't plan to reserve a little bit of energy for the most important part.
Yeah, and speaking of running awesome fundraising events, we have a video that you guys might want to check out. It's called 5 Ideas That Make Fundraising Fun. 5 events that make fundraising fun. And if you're wanting to figure out how to run a great event so you can do that proper follow-up, you should click on that video right now. It's somewhere on the screen. I don't know exactly where that's going to show up. But you go ahead and click on that. Follow us over there, and we'll see you in the next video.